Welcome to Friday's devotions. We're looking today in Exodus 4, which is the second part about Moses' encounter with the Lord at the burning bush. So we're going to read here from verse 10 down to verse 17 of Exodus 4. But Moses said to the Lord, O my Lord, I am not eloquent, either in the past or since you have spoken to your servant, but I am slow of speech and of tongue. Then the Lord said to him, Who has made man's mouth? Who makes him mute, or deaf, or seeing, or blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now therefore go, and I'll be with your mouth, and teach you what you shall speak. But he said, O my Lord, please send someone else. Then the anger of the Lord was kindled against Moses. And he said, Is there not Aaron your brother, the Levite? I know that he can speak well. Behold, he is coming out to meet you. And when he sees you, he will be glad in his heart. You shall speak to him and put the words in his mouth, and I will be with your mouth, and with his mouth. And I will teach you both what to say. He shall speak for you to the people, and he shall be your mouth, and you shall be as God to him. And take in your hand the staff, with which you shall do the signs. Amen. God has wonderfully revealed himself to Moses at the burning bush, and he has made himself known through God's personal name. I am who I am. He's the sovereign God, the all-sufficient God, the one who does as he pleases and who needs no one. And God gave to Moses at the beginning of chapter 4 here 3 miraculous signs to prove to the Israelites that he has been sent by the Lord. There was the sign of his hand becoming leprous, the sign of his rod, his staff turning into a snake, and the sign of water being turned into blood. But Moses, instead of being willing now to go ahead and obey God, he makes excuses for not obeying there in verse 10. And Moses' problem is that his focus is too much on himself. He sees his own weaknesses more and more than he sees the greatness and the strength of God. And so God redirects his focus in verses 11 to 12. And the Lord says, Who has made man's mouth? Who makes him mute or deaf or seeing or blind? Getting Moses just to consider what the Lord is able to do. And one of the main reasons for a lack of faith in what God can do through us is this focusing too much on ourselves and not enough focus on the God who calls us to serve. If we have a really high view of God, then indeed we'll be willing to serve. Think of Isaiah in the temple, and he saw the Lord high and exalted. Read this in Isaiah chapter 6. And he had such a vision of God, and then God says to him, Who will go for us? Who shall we send? Isaiah's response after seeing the greatness of God, Here am I, send me. But Moses here is still reluctant in verse 13, and now God's anger begins to be aroused in verse 14. It says there, the anger of the Lord was kindled against Moses. And God is patient with the doubter, the person who's struggling to believe. But the danger is that Moses now maybe is beginning to have more than doubts. Has he a hard heart towards God? Has he a heart that really just does not want to obey? When we don't obey, when we are struggling to obey, it may be because of times of doubts, but sadly at times it can be because of a heart that's hardened towards the Lord. Is that you? Are you someone who you're not obeying because you just don't want to obey? Your heart is not in line with the Lord. And that's when the Lord's patience begins to wane with people. God is amazingly patient though with Moses, and already he has Aaron on his way to come and support him. And for every excuse that Moses has, God has an answer. God continues to call him to serve. And that's what we need to understand, is that whatever holds us back for doing certain things that the Lord's calling us to do, the Lord has an answer. And so often the fears we have will not be realised. The devil makes the fears bigger and bigger to paralyse us and slave us. We need to see God as bigger than anything we face. And maybe you're listening to this, maybe you're not a Christian. And maybe there's so many reasons why you're held back from becoming a Christian. Oh, I couldn't keep it up. What will this person think of that? How will this area of my life be worked out? Listen, do you not realise that God is big enough to deal with all those things? You have to have faith that Jesus has died on the cross as your only hope of salvation. And you have to have faith that this Jesus who died and rose again is more than able to deal with the wee problems in your life. Big problems too, maybe, but they're wee in his sight because of the vastness of this God that we're called to serve and worship. Amen.